How? So, you see, some people may say that, wait a minute. How is this a win for Diddy when he's going to jail? He's going to jail, so yay! So let me put it to you like this. If it's between going free and doing 10 years, that's bad, doing 10 years. If it's between 10 years and life, that's your choice. There isn't a third choice. Your choice is 10 years or life. I think 10 years is a win. I think 10 years is a win. This was the best possible scenario. There was no chance in heck that he was going to go super free. That would literally be impossible. He was going to go to jail. It's what was he going to go to jail for? And if you're Diddy's defense team and you looked at all of those charges and you got done for the least of the charges and you could do 10 years, which it may not actually even be 10, it could actually even be less. Out on good behavior, parole tax, it's a freaking W. And this is the biggest L for the federal government of how was this not a slam dunk? So as I'm thinking about this, I'm like, how the heck is it not a slam dunk? Because let's review this right now. So, racketeering, not guilty. Sex trafficking of Cassie, not guilty. Those text messages. Sex trafficking of Jane Doe, not guilty. Transportation for prostitution. So, and that's what he's not guilty of. So, what he's guilty for? 2 counts of transportation for prostitution. Guys, use your logic. When you look at all of that stuff, racketeering, sex trafficking, transportation for prostitution. Transportation for prostitution, that is the least of the charge. Racketeering and sex trafficking. See, racketeering, that can get you life. And you put that on sex trafficking, or you're going to jail for life. Minimum 30, 40, 50 years. So if all you got was, think about it, sex trafficking, racketeering, RICO, all that stuff, running a drug sex enterprise, you didn't get done for that, but you got done for transportation for prostitution. That is a huge win for Diddy. This is on the level of, no, it's not on the level, but this is close to O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson is the biggest win of all time. Like, in terms of Gid and Doy was O.J. Simpson. That was Doy. That was the degree of impossibility, Doy. Because how you saw all that evidence and your boy Darden did not put that guy into jail, it is still baffling to everybody because that's probably O.J. Simpson. He did it. But somehow he got off because that's the whole point, reasonable doubt. But when you just look at all of the evidence for Diddy, we're like, oh, no, bro, the deadline's going to chill with your boy Kels. Kels and Diddy will have a freaking bunk bed together. But what we learned here is you're sending someone to jail. That's real. It's got to be beyond a reasonable doubt. And as we've seen, the jury was, transportation for prostitution. Oh, yeah, that's obvious. Racketeering and sex trafficking. I can see a lot of the evidence, but we can see stuff that could refute it. And I'm sorry, there is once there's doubts, reasonable doubts, you can't convict. You can't convict. I mean, go watch 12 Angry Men, one of the greatest films of all time, of just how jury works. Because really, that is the best film in the representation of how it works within a jury room, because you're dealing with different personalities, different people. Remember, it's a jury of your peers, different kinds of people. But the key thing, though, is everybody has got to agree, and there has to be not a shred of doubt if you're going to convict for any of those charges. So, where we are here. So, we'll just read some stuff. So, legal expert Mitchell Epling says that he would not be surprised at all if Cobbs ends up working out the court as today a free man. That's because the conditions at the federal jail where Combs has been for 9 months are horrible. He says so. Judges try to avoid sending people there unless absolutely necessary. Now, that might be the place that your boy Kels is at. I don't know. It might be where Kels is at. Edna says Combs' attorneys will now be arguing for him to receive a sentence of time served, meaning no more time in prison. Now, it's one thing to get off of this, which is crazy. If they convince that judge of no time in prison, it's stupid. He's doing time. That judge is sending him to prison. Like, you see, just like, okay, look, you got off. Someone got off. No prison time, you're having a laugh, bro. That's not happening. He is going to jail. If they somehow convince Diddy to walk scot-free and serve no prison time, bro, that's literal insanity. Literal insanity. Prosecutors will be arguing for much more, but in the end, Epnos says Combs is likely only looking at a sentence of 3 years in prison. So prosecutors will be arguing for much more. It says of 3 years in. So Combs is likely looking at a sentence of 3 years in prison maximum in comparison to the license he was facing convicted. If Combs, of all those charges, only does 3 years, that is a huge win. Like, if it does no prison time, that's not realistic. Because remember, I think they said it could be 10 or 20, but they said it's 10 years but served concurrently. If the diddler only gets 3 years when he could have potentially gotten life, that is the biggest win of all time. It is the biggest win. It would be the biggest win of all time. Guys, imagine this guy could have potentially done life for being a freaking Batman villain mastermind. So from being potentially a freaking Diddy Luther to 3 years, bruh, that is a W. That is a W. So let's try and explain. So, Robert's media continues by telling us that the verdict jury reached was not a total shock. It was always going to be difficult for prosecutors to prove their case, which means it required them to show that these acts were not consensual. That's the thing. Because again, I was following it on and off. Those text messages from Cassie, where you had Cassie even threatening the people that, if you don't do this, I'm gonna. So once you do that, again, what's your job of a defense? Your job of a defense is seeds of doubt. Seeds of doubt. Remember, you're dealing with the human brain. So what you want to do is, you may not prove that I may not be able to prove my client is fully innocent with clear hand-cut evidence, but all I need is just shreds of doubt. And once you put shreds of doubt into the minds of the jury, they're like, okay, he may have done it. May isn't good enough. It's either definite or not. If it's may or may not, I'm sorry, you can't convict. You can only convict if you are 100% sure. If you're 99% sure, that's not good enough. You've got to be 100% sure. So for the prosecution is seeds of doubt. Seeds of doubt. Hey, if it's consensual, hey, if people came along with it, then the jury were like, can we convict him? Can we send this guy to jail for life if we are doubtful? And that's the issue there. Because the defense had a fair number of examples of text messages and other communications where the victims seemingly agreed to participate in these sex acts. It made it difficult for the jury to conclude that the victims were unwilling participants. And that was the key thing there. So if I'm a jury member, I was forced. Bro, you're forcing people to do sexual acts? That's crazy. But then if you now bring evidence that the victims came along with it and they were accepted, okay, he's a freak. You can't send someone to jail for just being a sexual freak, especially if he's not forced. If people are not being forced into it, that's fine. You can't. So a group of people just have this crazy sexual acts, and you're going to send them to jail for that? No, you're freaky, you're crazy, but that's just how you live your life. So if this, because again, you can't be a victim if you willingly took part. And that is how these jury guys viewed it, bro. The burden of proof is always with the prosecution, beyond a reasonable doubt. And I think at the end of the day, jurors felt likely that the prosecution hadn't met its burden. O.J. Simpson. Like, that's whole... because I think it was Mark Foreman, that was the racist detective, who once they brought him in, they then made it racial. And what they did with O.J. Simpson was that, okay, look, this evidence seems to be a slam dunk. But it was, okay, what if? And once they brought in Mark Foreman, who was a racist cop, this was during racial time. This is what's it called, Rodney King. They're like, well, the police are racist. Or the police could have planted that thing, or they could have made it seem as if he did it because of their racism. Seeds of doubt. Seeds of doubt. You plant in those seeds of doubt, like, So, as I said, for the prosecution, the defense don't need to prove anything beyond reasonable doubt. The prosecution needs to prove beyond reasonable doubt. So they're the guys that need that hardcore evidence, watertight, to prove beyond reasonable doubt where it's a slam dunk. The job of the defense is, forget about, we need hardcore evidence. No. Doubt, 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 refute, doubt, refute, doubt, second guess, second guess, second guess. So once the jury are in, they're like, yeah, but I know this seems like obvious, but that piece of evidence, but what if? But what if? Are you sure? What if? There's a possibility. There's a possibility. Because what the defense always say that, are you going to send a man to jail for life for most likely? He probably? I am pretty sure no. You send someone to jail because 100% he did it. Not 98%, 99%, 100%, 110% he did it. You cannot send anyone to jail if you're 99% sure. You can't. What was the reaction there? That's his relief Combs felt when he heard he was only guilty for the least serious charges. Combs looked at the jury several times and made a prayer sign with his hands as he did it towards his family too. At one point, Combs put his hand over his face and they raised him up there once again and making a prayer sign. He kept nodding his head at the jury and his family. It's a win. It's a win. It's a win. Again, let's say he does the worst, 10 years, 20. If my choice is 20 years or life, I'll take 20. And you could get off and maybe do 7 for good behavior. Get off on parole, good behavior, you can maybe do 7 of that 20. It's a win. Prosecution, what the hell? Guys, we've been making jokes about how this guy blew up Kid Cudi's car. Look at what he was doing to Cassie on tape. Look at everything that... It's insane. So for the prosecution, how did you break this? You see, it's for the prosecution. How did you, with the power of the federal government, did you not present enough irrefutable evidence to force the jury to convict? Of course, they're going to plant seeds of doubt, bring the text messages, but how did you not? Because remember, they were following Diddy for a long time. So they were tracking for a long time, WhatsApping, informants for a long time. So how did you not present evidence that, like, bro, this evidence is overwhelming. This evidence is overwhelming. This is just too much. Because I'm thinking of, like, they have CCTV footage, but it just goes to show that. And I'm going to sound crazy saying this, because I don't know what really happened. I don't know. Were they really victims or not? I'd like to think that they were victims. From what has been reported and seen, I think they were forced. See, that's a key point. Let's say I'm a jury member right now, and they show me all of this evidence, and we're now in the jury room like 12 angry men. I think they were forced. I can't convict on that. So if you present me evidence, I'm like, oh, bro, this evidence is true, but there's some text messages that show they were not. Then I'm like, I think most. I'm 95% sure. I'm 98% sure. But I'm not 100% sure. So if I'm not 100% sure, I can't convict. So of course, competition for prostitution, bro, like that was easy. Of course he did it. That's way too easy. But the racketeering and the sex trafficking, I think most likely he's doing that stuff. But if you now bring stuff that now refuses and you now plant seeds of doubt, that 100% now goes to like 98 to 97. And again, if I'm 98% sure, because I am 98% sure that he's guilty, 98% sure ain't good enough, bro. even in the O.J. Simpson, based off how those stuff was presented, and if you took me back to 91, how the racial tensions, policemen beating up Rodney King, knowing that, oh, the police are racist, and they bring the whole Mark Foreman thing, I'm like, yeah, I'm 99% sure that O.J. Simpson did it. But then that 1% is, there's a possibility that Mark Foreman maybe planted evidence and trying to make him look bad. So the fact that there's that 1% that I'm not sure, and there's just that doubt, you can't convict. You only convict if you're 100% sure. From all the evidence given, I'm 100% sure this person is guilty. That's just the name of the game, man. But for me, I'm shocked that the Diddler got off, because I was sure that this guy was going to do time. Based on all the evidence they got, and the key thing, the fact that the federal government, so they say, in these cases, the federal government has a 93% success rate. 93% success rate. So that's only a 7% failure rate. And somehow, this boy just fell in that 7%, man. So, the Diddler, the Batman villain, lives to fight another day. But this is the key thing as well, because I was actually discussing this with my sister. He's done. In 2025, 2026, you're not going into any major news shows. You're not going to make it fight on any Grammys, no VMAs. Revolt is done. Ciroc is done, because that tape exists of you beating up a woman brutally. So because of that tape of you beating up Cassie, any reputable organization will have nothing to do with you. So your image is forever tarnished. It's forever tarnished. So, yeah, you're free and everything, but you're not the same. You're not Puff Daddy anymore. You're not Puffy Combs, Sean Combs, P. Diddy, Brother Love. All that, that it doesn't hit anymore. So you just have to be quiet. But in terms of a guy that can be moving, shaking, doing stuff, music, because I think he was going to do a versus with the Jermaine Dupri. Any of that stuff, it's done. Like, your name is fully solid for life. So, because, yeah, your image is done. But somehow this dude got free, man. Crazy.